Welcome, everybody, to Brick. Beautiful building, isn't it? Isn't it? And thank you, Nicole, and all the team here who invited me to speak with you today. And I have to admit, when Nicole told me what the theme was, the end, I thought, well, this is going to be a very short presentation. I love the graphic that came out of Rio about the end. It shows a woman who's probably cleaning out her closet. I think it also shows somebody who's coming to the end of a book. And I love the little one that's finishing bonbons. She's taking the last chocolate out. And then, of course, the relationship that ends. But I think out of every end, as T.S. Eliot said, there is a beginning. And when I thought about this, I thought, well, really, the end implies a journey. It's like you've been on a trip. And we've all been on a journey, right? Life is a journey. Every day is a journey, full of surprises. We don't know when an intersection is going to come. We don't know who we're going to meet. We don't know when we get in bed at night and we go over, well, what was my journey today? What happened? And every person we meet, every place we go, we carry with us. It makes an impact on us. So I'm going to share with you some of the journeys that have impacted me. And I think with your presence today, you need to think about and may have impacted you. This is a quote that Lauren, who is in the audience today when I was talking about my presentation, she's a child of the 90s, and she loves music. Everybody's shaking their head, child of the 90s, right? Semisonic. Well, I have to admit, I never heard of Semisonic. But apparently they were a one-time wonder, and the line comes from Closing Time, which I'm told every bar around ends with closing time. Well, I wasn't hanging around in bars in the 90s, so I missed the song, but I think the quote really is very impactful and had meaning for me. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. So every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. So I'm going to begin my presentation talking about this very building that we're in, because this building has certainly had an impact on me. And really the birth of this building began with Marcel Breuer. Marcel Breuer was a famous German-Hungarian architect. He was born in 1902, and at the age of 25, he was attending an arts and crafts school in Germany. And you'll see that his first design, even though he had a love for woodworking, when he was at this school, he became very interested in metal. And the Wassily chair, which is the black and white chair in the middle, was his first iconic design. And this was from 1925. First time a chair had been designed with steel. And if you look at the chairs you're sitting on today, they're very similar in design to this Wassily chair. His inspiration for the chair was a bicycle. Because he rode a bicycle every day to school, that's how he became interested in steel and the welding of it, putting together the strength behind it. A few years later, he designed the Seska chair named after his daughter. And I actually have two of these chairs, not original ones because they're very expensive. But over in our office at Modernizing Medicine here in this building, we have this same chair. This was the first time a chair did not have four legs. Its design is out of a cantilever, which I'm not an architect or an engineer, but the more weight that's put on the chair, the more stable the chair becomes. And there's only one welding point in this chair. And it's amazing, this chair designed in 1925 still lives 100 years later in various forms, that we are all aware of. At the end of the 30s, just before World War II, Brewer came to the US, he immigrated to the US, and he went to Harvard to teach, I think, which tells you the gravitas that this man had in his short career at that time. So up at Harvard in New England, he started to design houses. And he went from woodworking and steel, he got into concrete. He loved concrete. And you'll see at the very top of the building there, he was asked in the late 50s to design the UNESCO building in Paris. And he started with the Y design also. That building is out of concrete. He felt the Y design, you didn't have to go up, you could go out, but still keep the footprint of the land within a human relationship. And it allowed light to come in, more light to come in. So this was kind of the evolution of his thinking. Then, in the mid-60s, he designed the Whitney Museum, which is down at the bottom. And that building was absolutely panned. People wondered, what the heck is that? There's a joke that, in my research on Brewer, that Brewer's in a taxi cab with a friend, and you'll notice there's a stoplight in front of the museum, which is at 75th and Madison. And the taxi driver looks over and says, what a monstrosity that is. And Brewer turns to his friend and said, yep, that's just the emotion I wanted. Rather than passing by, people stopped, whether they liked it or they didn't. Now today this building is now the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it's really considered an iconic building. This building is also a great example of what's known in architecture as brutalism. And that comes from the French, bruton brut, which means raw concrete. And you see in the evolution of Brewer that he really liked to design with concrete and steel and glass, but certainly concrete. And if any of you came through the doors of this building and looked at the pillars, they are raw concrete. They're not stuccoed over. You can actually see the bubbles in the concrete and how the layers were designed. Brewer passed away in 1981, but his designs absolutely still live on today and are considered very modern. So this building, what was the start of this building that has been on a journey? Well, Brewer did design this building back in 1968. Well, it was a little bit before that he started the design. But he had designed the IBM research building in Le Gaude, France. And again, you'll see he continues, that's on the right-hand side, he continues the Y design. He also notes down at the bottom on that photograph, the pillars. He went back to his roots with woodworking. Those pillars represent trees. He wanted the trees to support the building. He designed it out of raw concrete because he said that the hue of the concrete would pick up the environment, the landscape that was around. So when you walk outside this building, because certainly those pillars are very noticeable with this building, look and see if they pick up the green of the lawn and the green of the trees. Up in the left-hand side, of course, is this building, Boca Raton Innovation Center, was finished in 1968. It has 1.7 million square feet in it. Wow. And just to give you a reference point, one Bayfront Plaza is being built down in Miami. 91 stories, 1.4 million square feet. So this building that he designed in 3 stories has more square feet in it than a 91-story skyscraper. Yet it's very relatable in the environment. It's not some huge, massive building, but we can relate to it and we can see its beauty. You'll notice that when this picture was taken, that some of it didn't connect. It wasn't a circle at that time. That was done several years later. And several years after that, for those of you who live in Boca, down on Military, there's a middle school. That was also designed by Brewer. You can tell, again, the iconic design there. And that was a very secret research center for IBM. IBM developed the personal computer here in this building. If you walk around, some of the elevators you'll see are absolutely room size because they had to very gently move the mainframes onto them. So a very iconic building, especially for Boca Raton. You'll also see that Boca at that time was mainly sand and low vegetation. It didn't have the beautiful, lush landscape that we have now. And if you really look hard, up in the right-hand corner, I-95 is 2 lanes. So this building, though, is really something to be treasured for Boca. The history of it, the design of it. Back in 1988, unfortunately, IBM sold the building. At its height, it had over 9,000 people working here. So the building was sold in '88 and started to go into disrepair. And then in 2005, it was purchased again, started to rebuild, but certainly Crocker Partners last year purchased the building. And the plans that they have for the building are amazing, the amenities they have here. And of course, Modernizing Medicine moved in. We started our journey here last year. We moved into a new 64,000 square foot office facility. But I wanted to share with you the beginning of the journey for Modernizing Medicine. As Brick has a beginning on their journey, so does Modernizing Medicine. And 2 gentlemen, one by the name of Dan Kane and the other one by the name of Dr. Michael Sherling, got together back in February of 2010. And Dan needed to go, as all Floridians do, to go see a dermatologist. So he made an appointment, walked into Michael's office, had the examination. Then Michael started to huff and gruff. Sometimes Michael starts to huff and gruff when things aren't going well. And he was complaining about all the government regulations and all the paperwork that he has to do. And Dan, being a serial entrepreneur, said to him, well, you must have some technology that takes care of this. And Mike goes, no, I'm dealing with paper and there's just nothing out there that understands how a physician thinks. Dan says, well, look, I'll tell you what. If you don't charge me, now that's kind of hearsay that he said, I'll come back in a couple, 3 weeks and I'll show you what technology can do for you. So Dan went away and discovered there was really nothing out there that could manage a physician's practice that was the workflow that a physician wanted and that allowed the physician to spend more time with his patients. Dan came back, and that was the beginning of Modernizing Medicine back in 2010. Today, we're 756 employees. We have what we call electronic health records and services that manage a physician's practice in 6 specialties. Our mission is really to modernize medicine. We want to transform medicine. And why do we want to do it? We want to make doctors' practices more efficient so they can spend more time with you and me, so they can help improve my health care. So Modernizing Medicine is a technology company in healthcare that gives doctors the tools to help you and me. We continue on our journey here. We're going to start another 50,000 square foot project here at Brick. We have been growing. We also have an office down in Santiago, Chile. We are on a mission. If you visit our office and step off the elevator, that's the first thing you'll see, that we are on a mission. I also have to add, last weekend, our company, along with the design company, won what's called the Bragg Award, named after the founder of the Association for Commercial Designers. We won our office won the top award for the design for large corporate space. So I know that if you would like, yes. And those are some photographs of our space. And as you'll see, I love this one. Every year, everybody in the company comes out and we take a photograph. We have about 550 employees that actually live here in the local area. Now, my journey. What is my journey? Okay, well, that's my Ferrari there. That's what I tell my grandchildren. Anyway, I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. I was educated there. I started out my career in healthcare. That's what I thought my journey was going to be. Well, I got a master's in genetics when genetics was very much in the birth of the field. And I practiced genetic counseling and actually doing the first genetic testing of children that had abnormalities. At that time, it was a very rough picture of chromosomes. I actually would take pictures of chromosomes and then I would cut them out and I would compare their size in order to diagnose what the child's abnormality was. Well, unless a child had an extra chromosome or an arm lopped off, you really couldn't tell. Nowadays, it's amazing what they can do. Absolutely amazing how far it's come in such a short period of time. So I started out in healthcare. Then I say I went from the womb to the tomb because I got a job. How I ever got it, I won't know. People trusted me. In what was at that time the Area Agency on Aging. We lived outside Washington, D.C., and there was no genetic research being done up in about 50 miles from D.C., up near Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. So I got Title VII grant funding to open an employment agency for people over 55, and it was run by people over 55. This model was adopted in the state of Virginia. I did leave it, and I decided to open my own employment agency. That's how I got into people. I went back and got a master's in human resources management, and from there I did many different things. Went into retail, did some consulting on my own, and then we decided to move to Florida. I worked for Home Shopping Network and Human Resources. Recruited show hosts. I can tell you those show hosts never stopped talking. Never. I can't imagine being what it's like to be a spouse of a show host because they would never stop talking. Very, very interesting, though, model. Of course, things have changed now that we have the internet, but very interesting model. Loved that. Came over here to work for a technology company, worked for them for 15 years. And as things happened, someone who I had worked with had actually recruited me to come to Modernizing Medicine. And so my journey continues. But Marcel Brewer, his journey continues and has impacted my journey. Modernizing Medicine's journey continues, and that has crossed with my journey. So a journey truly is a road where you come to intersections and are impacted. Now, where does a journey end? And I'm going to share with you a personal story that happened with my brother. He came to visit me a couple months ago, and he is my younger brother, and I guess he thought he was being dutiful with his older sister. But after dinner one night, he leaned across the table and he said, "So have you planned your funeral?" And I took a gulp of what I was drinking, and I said to him, "Well, I appreciate that, but I don't want a funeral. I don't want a funeral." Now, I realize that I am going to end. I am physically going to end. But I believe that we impact people, that buildings impact us, that companies impact us. I hope some of the information that I've shared with you today, as you look around BRIC, as you learn about modernizing medicine, has impacted you. And that's going to continue. So certainly I will end, but you on your journey may take some kernels with you from today. And that's my hope for you. So I'm going to end as I began, because every end does have a beginning. So, semisonic, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Okay, thank you very much. Every museum, which is down at the bottom.